It was none of our fault. It was just bad luck. I wouldn't be able to leave the country. I wouldn't be able to fly home. Like, wow. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Ali, and today I'm going to tell you what not to do. I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't. So today I'm going to do kind of an extension of a post that I made on my Instagram recently, which is here if you would like to follow it. Basically on there I told some stories that had never really made it to Instagram because they were kind of things that went wrong, or like just horrible things that happened, or just funny things, or things I'd never talked about. And I put a bunch of these things in one caption, and a lot of you said that you would love to hear like longer versions of these in a video. So that's exactly what I'm going to do today. I think I'm going to start with the brand trip that went so wrong. So basically a few years ago, I was working on a trip with a brand. I'm not going to say their name just because I don't think I need to, but they're a travel company, and if you go back in my Instagram, you'll be able to easily figure out who it was. There was about 4 or 5 of us traveling to this destination that we were working for in camper vans, and this one night we were all going to meet at the sort of valley of this mountain where there was a campground. We were shooting that day, and then we were going to camp at night, shoot some content in the morning, and then move on to the next location. However, this mountain location that we were going to be staying at didn't have any reception or any phone service, so they had to put in our itinerary sort of the details on how to get there. Yikes. And I'm pretty sure they knew that someone along the way was gonna mess up and gonna get lost. It just so happened to be us. I cannot emphasize this enough. It was not their fault. It was our fault, 100%. Gab and I were shooting in this field. We got some great photos for the brand, for the like company that we needed to do. And then after that, as the sun was, you know, going to start setting soon, we head off for the mountain for this journey to meet everyone else at the campsite. By this point, I think we were 2 or 3 days into the trip, and like it was going so well, so lovely. We loved everyone. They were taking such good care of us. This is where I got kind of not so great. Gab was driving. I had the itinerary, I had the map, I had everything in front of me. I'm just gonna say, this wasn't my fault. It wasn't Gab's fault either. It was none of our fault. It was just bad luck. So the directions were along the lines of, you know, drive straight on this road for however many kilometers, go around the mountain. You'll find this white gate. When you see that, just go past it and then take the next left. And then like a few kilometers later, you'll be there. It was kind of like that. Sweet, easy, no worries. Actually, yes, worries, lots of worries. So Gab and I are driving, and I think it's like starting to get almost dusk time. Like the sun is setting, but we're like, oh, we're probably like 15 minutes away from the campsite. We'll be there soon. Just remember, no cell service, can't talk to anyone. We're driving, you know, it's like little dirt roads at this point. And so we finally come to this little white gate. I'm like, oh, it's kind of small, but you know, I guess we're in the middle of nowhere, and that's kind of the only signpost that we had to look for. So we find this white gate. We keep driving, we turn left, take the next left, and then we keep driving some more. And then slowly it gets darker and darker, and we're still not there. The moon is well and truly out. It's really dark at this point, and it finally hits us that we're really lost, and we don't know if we took the wrong turn or if the instructions are wrong. Maybe everyone's lost. We don't know how far away we are. We could be 5 minutes around the corner, or we could be like literally hours in the wrong direction. And we come up to this like huge house on the hill, and it was kind of one of those ones with like a huge driveway, and there was like one light on, and I was like, listen, Gab, I'm scared, but I feel like maybe we should go and ask them for directions. Like, I don't know. And we probably sat there talking about it for like 5 minutes, and we're like, do we go and talk to these strangers? Do we go knock on their door and ask them for directions? Ultimately, we decided not to, because we didn't want to get murdered. I don't think that would have really let us complete the contract of the work we were going to do there. So we didn't go up there. We kept driving, and then eventually we reached this kind of farmland, and there was all these tents on it, and we're like, maybe that's it. Like maybe this is our people. But we couldn't see the vans that we were all driving. So we pulled over. It's like this whole like family were having a reunion in this campground in the middle of nowhere, and one by one they all come over. Like the auntie walks over, the grandma, like 2 little kids, all these people come over and talk to us, and we explain our situation. And I just remember being so anxious at this point, because it was getting really dark and we just had no idea where we were. So I was like, I need to hear some good news from these people. I need to hear something reassuring to find out that we're close by and we're not gonna like let these people down. Because in my mind, I was panicking so much about how much the people that were taking care of us would be freaking out. I was feeling so bad, so guilty that we were like stressing them out. So I was like, oh my God, we just need to like contact them. We need to get there. We need to let them know we're okay. This has got to be it. So we go over and we speak to this family, and we're like, look, this is where we're trying to get. We showed them the name. I think we showed them on the maps, and we're like, please, like, are we close? And they're like,
oh no, sweetie, you're really far away.
And I just immediately burst into tears. And I don't know why, I think just the buildup of stress and fear and like anxiety for the people that were waiting for us. I was like,
oh my god, like we're ruining this trip. What have we done? What are we gonna do?
I was determined we were going to spend the night in the middle of the forest on a mountain in the middle of nowhere, possibly die. At least we had food. The company we were working with had like stocked our van way up, so that was fine. Thankfully those people didn't kill us, because looking back now I'm realizing we had just gone up to like a huge group of people and said, hi, we're two young girls completely stranded on our own in the middle of nowhere and we can't contact anyone. They could have murdered us so easily. We just like walked right into their murder space. Shout out to that family for not killing us and for also sending us on our way. So eventually we arrived at the campground, and the lady that we were working with that was taking care of us was so apologetic and so gracious, and she was like, I'm so sorry, I didn't give you the best directions. And we were like, oh my god, it's not your fault, like please don't worry. And I will say, most of the time though we were stressed and freaking out, Gab and I were laughing and having a good time, because you know, things always turn out okay.
I feel like we're on this road.
We might be a little bit lost. At least it's pretty.
I'm just being positive. Oh my god, it's like a haunted mansion. Look at that on the...
We're gonna go get killed now.
Yay!
Update. It's been 3 seconds since I filmed that clip, and we found the bridge that we might have been looking for.
That was clue 1.
We might not be lost.
Adora.
Now we've got another like 8 kilometers and then 5 kilometers and then a village, and then probably a lot more cows. Fingers crossed.
2 hours later.
Update. We were right. We were lost.
Incredibly lost, friend.
And now we've got to drive back about an hour in the dark on windy gravel road until we hopefully find our campground and our group. But at least the moon's out. So, you know, silver linings. But then the next morning we had a call time to go and do like a sunrise shoot at this certain spot. And so we're like, cool, we can do that at least. No, we couldn't. We were literally following a convoy, I'm pretty sure. We were driving one by one, and then somehow we got separated and we got lost again. This time still dark, but in the morning. So we ended up at this beach and we ended up having a sunrise swim, got even more beautiful photos, and it turns out the rest of the group, their whole shoot got cancelled because it was too foggy and they got nothing. So I was like, we just had a gorgeous swim, watched the sun come up, hung out with some birds, ate our muesli on the sand, and got fantastic content for this brand. That's not too bad. I don't really know what the moral of that story is, but it was really funny. And I will link down below the Instagram photo and caption that I posted at the time and kind of explain that story a little bit more. If any brands are watching this, please don't let that story deter you. I promise I'm very professional, and it was just circumstance, but we all turned out okay anyway. So this story is a very quick one, but brings me so much stress and anxiety to think about. Basically, I've worked overseas a few times at a summer camp in America. I'm sure you guys know this if you watch my channel. But for the duration that we're working at the camp, we keep our valuables, like our passport, our visa, things like that, in the office so they're safe. Now, I forgot this. So on the very last day of camp, we all go back into New York on these 2 huge like Greyhound style buses. So we're all packed up, we've gathered all our things from our bunks, like everyone's loaded onto these buses. I'm on the second bus. The first bus pulls away. They're off to New York. We're about to start moving as well. Our boss comes on, he's like saying goodbye, and I was like, holy heck. I left my passport in the office. We are just about to pull out of here and like book it to New York, which is 2.5 hours away, and my passport and visa would be stuck in the office at camp. I wouldn't be able to leave the country, I wouldn't be able to fly home, like oh my god. So I had to stand up and be like, look guys, I'm so sorry. I've left my things in the office. I'm gonna go grab them real quick. And so off I trot, and the best part is the bus is parked sideways at this point, perpendicular to the trail that goes up to camp. So then everyone can just look out the window and see me like booking it, running up this hill, being like, I'm so sorry, like I'll be quick, running up the hill. And someone else had to come with me because they had to open the office and like unlock everything and get it out. Yeah, I'm just like running up, grab my folder, grab my passport. I'm like, thank God. That would have been so stressful if I'd left it there. Running back down, back on the bus, and they're just like, well done, Ali. That was a very humbling moment. Now I'm gonna tell you guys about the worst date I've ever been on. To be fair, I'm pretty lucky. I think it's the only bad date I've ever been on. So Can't really complain, but I guess to even out the ratio, this one bad date had to be pretty bad. So I was in New York. I was at my favorite thrift store. I have so many videos made there. We'll link them down below. And this boy comes up to me and starts talking to me, and we're just chatting back and forth. This boy, he has the same name as a college, an American college. Let's call him Duke. It's not Duke, and if you want to guess it down below, I will tell you if you're right, so feel free to have a guess. So Duke comes up to me and starts chatting. I'm like looking through the t-shirts, looking through the tie-dye. We're just chatting side by side. And we realize we have a lot in common. He's just like super interested in like why I'm there, and find out he's working in Brooklyn at a coffee shop, and he asks me out, or asks my number. Now, I don't have an American SIM card at this point, so I think I give him my Instagram or Facebook or some other way of contacting me, and then we like say goodbye and go on our merry way. At this point, I'm back at the apartment and I'm sort of thinking like, well, I've never gone on a date with anyone that I don't really know before. I don't know how comfortable I feel with that. But then on the other hand, I'm like, look, I'm young, like I need to be more spontaneous. My friends are encouraging me, and I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? Just live a little, like go out, it's New York, have fun. So finally we organized to go out on a date. So I was like having dinner with my friends, and then I was gonna go and meet him afterwards. If you guys were following me on Instagram then a couple of years ago, you might actually remember this, because I think I was posting on my stories, or maybe it was Snapchat, but I was like trying to hype myself up for it, and then when I got back I was like, that was a bad idea. But I digress. So it's getting later and later, and I realized I haven't heard back from him. I was like, where are we meeting? Like what time? What are we doing? Like what's the plan? Then I realized it was actually my fault. My messages hadn't been sending. I hadn't been getting my messages because I wasn't in Wi-Fi. So then I was like, oh, sorry, that's my fault. Like I'll make up for it. Let's still meet. So then we decide to meet a little bit later, and starts getting a little bit later and later and later because he was at like a friend's gig or something. I was like, that's fine. I feel bad for ignoring you earlier, so it's fine if you like push it back a little bit. So then we decide to meet. We're gonna go to this bar that's just down the road from the apartment I was staying in. Sorry, I just had to put a new battery in, so I'm sorry if the angle changed, but let's continue. So I'm like, cool, I'm gonna be spontaneous for once. I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go on a date. Look at me, living it up in the city that never sleeps. Or so I thought. So I head off to this bar. Thankfully, it's only like a few blocks away from the apartment I was staying at. Now, I arrive a few minutes early and realize that they're like starting to pack up. I think it's a thing that maybe bars in America or New York close earlier than they do here. In Australia, you probably go to a bar until like 2 a.m. You don't go out until like 11 o'clock. Yeah, I arrived and they were already packing out. So I was like, okay, we're gonna need to find somewhere else to go when he arrives. So Duke arrives, and just remember the fact that we'd only met once. So to me, I'm not like super close with him yet. And the first thing he does is like go in for a kiss on the lips, like as a like hello greeting. And I was like, oh, like kind of pulled back, and I was like, whoa. That's when I realized how much his breath smelled like alcohol, like beer to be specific, which is the worst kind of smelling alcohol. Oh, this guy's just like rocked up at a date completely drunk. Like he's bathed himself in beer actually. And I was like, that's not a great sign. So I was like, oh, should we like find somewhere to walk? Like, is there anywhere cool around here to check out? Maybe there's a rooftop bar or like, you know, a pool house or something like that. He wasn't interested in that. I want to keep this pretty PG on my channel, but basically walked outside, grabbed my hand, grabbed me in other places. Yikes. And I was immediately like, whoa, what are you doing? Like pushed him off, and he was kind of like, come on, you know, trying to encourage me. I was like, sorry, not my thing. I'm just gonna start walking towards the apartment. So thankfully he was drunk enough not to realize that I was just like literally walking home. I was also lucky enough that he wasn't gonna force himself on me in any horrible ways, but he just kept basically not taking no for an answer, and that wasn't nice. But basically I only had to walk about 3 blocks to get home, so I walked with him and just kept like kind of pushing him off. Thankfully, being drunk, he wasn't very like forceful, but I was just like, get off, and like would talk and try and keep him busy and occupied. And then I got to the apartment and he was like, can I come up? And I was like, nope. And he's like, oh, I should come up. And I'm like, bye. And thankfully got straight inside and walked up to my friends and was like, that was horrible. Men are trash. But the sad thing is, we met and we talked in broad daylight and we hung out for a little bit, and he seemed so normal and so fine. So I don't know what to say. Another story that I think is worth telling is the time I got lost as a child in New York for an entire day. I was was 9 years old. This was when I was living in America for about 4 months with my family. So I was in New York with my parents and we decided to go and see Staten Island. For those of you that don't know, Staten Island is like kind of bigger than you would expect. I mean, as a kid, I thought it was just like a literal island, but it's, you know, it's a place where people live and there is stuff to do. Anyway, so we're on this ferry. I can picture it so clearly. I was wearing my flared, stripy Mary-Kate and Ashley jeans, eating a box of goldfish crackers. I don't know why I remember this so clearly, but I do. Walking around the edge of the boat, like exploring, and then we arrived at Staten Island. And so I was at the front of the boat and we kind of reached the dock and I was like, oh, well, I might as well just like get off, walk to the side, and I'll wait for my mum and dad to get off and then I'll join them and we'll go explore. I was one of the first people off because obviously I was a kid. I was like looking at the front of the boat, watching us reach the land. So I get off the ferry boat, step to the side, and the crowd just keep coming out and they're walking past, coming through. And then the crowd ends and I kind of turn back to the ferry and I see it going back to Manhattan and my parents hadn't gotten off. So in their mind, we were just taking a little ferry ride out and across and back to see the views of Manhattan. In my mind, we're taking a trip somewhere to get off and go and explore. These two things were not the same. So I'm standing here, this little 9-year-old kid, like, holy heck, my parents are on a ferry going back to Manhattan right now and I'm here on my own. I remember in this moment I was like, okay, I need to find someone that can help me, but I'm scared, like what if someone tries to hurt me? So I found a mum that had kids with her and I was like, look, if anyone's gonna kill me, it's not likely to be a mum that has her own children. In hindsight, she could have kidnapped them too, I don't know, but that was how my brain worked. In fact, I think it was one of those things where you're fine until someone asks you, are you okay? I walked up to her and I was like, I'm gonna be all cool and confident, and she was like, are you lost, honey? And I was like, yes. And so kindly she took me to this police station and was like, look, this kid's lost her family and her marbles, please help her. And I remember so clearly the officer that sort of took me in and took me under his wing is named Officer Angel Ortiz. I remember that name to this day. So Officer Angel Ortiz was like, cool, no worries, I'll take care of her. And at this point I'd probably been missing for about 20 minutes to half an hour, I think. And so that's 20 minutes to half an hour that my parents were thinking, she's gone overboard, she's fallen over because she's not on this ship. We've searched everywhere, she's not on the boat anymore, she's literally fallen into the water and drowned. That or someone's taken her. So at this point they were able to get a message to my parents on the ship. They said, I think they said my dad's name, please come to the front of the ship or whatever it was. And that alone made them think, okay, well, she's told someone her name, so she can't be dead. That's something. And that kind of put their mind at ease. But I didn't realize until like recently that that was a good 30 minutes. They thought I was definitely dead or abducted. So if you ever want people to appreciate you, just go missing for a little while and they'll realize, oh, I actually really want her in my life. Back on Staten Island, in the meantime, I'm having an absolute blast. I'm having the time of my life. We were riding around in the squad car with the police. They let me put the siren on. I was like, yeah, this is so badass. And we were gonna go to a baseball game. We went to this baseball field, but turns out they were having like a dance contest on. So we watched that instead and I was like, this is the coolest day ever. Love that lighting, that's so cool. Oh my God, it's like I'm in jail. Anyway, so years later, I end up going back to New York. I go back to this same police station and I say, hey, is there a person that works here called Officer Angel Ortiz? And there was. And I was like, do you remember taking care of a little 9-year-old kid for a day once that got lost? And he did, and he remembered me. And I think we got a photo together in the end. So I clearly just changed the angle again because this natural lighting is just testing me. I will also just mention a few quick other fun stories, like the time I was backpacking in Europe. I was in Barcelona with some friends and Aisha's phone got stolen. We were just sitting at a cafe getting like lunch or something. Someone came over sort of selling something that they'd made and they spread it all out on the table and we were sort of being very polite but saying like, no thank you, sorry, like no thank you. And they sort of gathered all their stuff back up and left. And we realized maybe 10-20 minutes later that they'd actually, in gathering their stuff, very sneakily stolen Aisha's phone. Aisha was okay, she was able to buy another phone, but she had been recording ADR for a TV show she was working on at that point. So like that was the more stressful thing in that moment, that she just lost all this work she'd put in. And we were sort of like running around the city frantically for a moment, like trying to find this person. But just something to be careful of if you're in cities like that. People can be very sneaky. There was also the time in New Zealand with my friends when we were camping in Wanaka, I believe it was, at a campground, and there was just a huge thunderstorm. Our tent was like in shambles at this point. We just didn't know what to do because we couldn't sleep in this weather. Our tent was flooded. It was unlivable at this point. And so we went to the owners of the campground and we kind of begged them. We said, we know you have this computer room, because we were sitting in there that day using the Wi-Fi. We were like, can we please just like put our sleeping bags in here and sleep there the night? We'll pay you extra. We just can't stay in our tent can't, it's broken, it won't work. And they were like, no, that's not an option, sorry. But eventually they came up with this compromise. They're like, look,
we have this bike shed.
And so we all ended up going into this huge tin metal shed, for lack of a better word, which was probably the size of a very small house, just this one big room, bikes everywhere. But there were also mattresses for some reason. And so we got down these mattresses and like put our sleeping bags out. And for some reason, I remember we had Wheat Bix. We just had like some weird combination of cereals. And I'd lost my voice at this point, and it was the middle of the night. It was storming down outside. And we're just in this tin bike shed laughing hysterically because what in the world was happening? And I just remember like laughing my head off with no voice. That was just a very fun memory.
We're eating a lid. They're eating dry cereal and we're in a warehouse. This looks illegal.
I actually do have a lot more travel stories if you guys ever want to hear them. Like, I don't know if I've probably told the story of meeting Ben Platt or meeting Raven Simone or meeting Snoop Dogg, like all of these kind of stories, or the time we had like a forest party in Yosemite National Park, just kind of unexpected things that have come about. This is kind of my favorite part of traveling anyway. All of these little unexpected weird stories that end up happening. It's not the planned moments that you remember most, it's these spontaneous, weird, memorable stories. So as long as you're safe and keep your wits about you,
Got to have your wits about you.
you'll end up with some pretty good stories. Well, this lighting is beginning to annoy even me now, and I'm sure I've rambled for way longer than any of you care to listen. I'll call it a day here. Please let me know if you guys enjoyed any of these stories, and I would love to hear some of your own travel stories down below. The worst thing that's ever happened to you traveling, or the best. I think they're just really interesting things to hear about. Please give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. It really helps me and helps my channel, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any more videos from me. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.